What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming back with a box office breakdown for this past weekend, which saw Gran Turismo open up probably a little bit better than what some had been expecting. It is expected right now to open to $17 million domestic. This is after having already made roughly around $20 to $22 million internationally at different markets. It had one of these weird staggered releases, which will make it very difficult to actually be able to predict what this film will make in the long run. But needless to say, the film is doing actually quite well for what it is. The film did not cost all that much to make, so the film has a potential to be able to make its money back and to make some profit even, and it is a pretty solid movie. I enjoyed it quite thoroughly. Huge shout out to the Critical Drinker for recommending that movie when he first got to see it a little bit earlier than us here in the States. But that all being said, it is still going to ultimately end up not being one of the big stories at the box office, because you have a film like Barbie that not only has surpassed the domestic box office for the Super Mario Bros. Movie to be the #1 domestic release of this year, but it is also a few days away from passing the international totals for the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and is therefore about to hit the #1 film of this year. It is still making money. It is still adding on to it, and the projections and the potential for it to get somewhere between 1.4 and 1.6 billion is definitely still on the table. We'll go ahead and break down these numbers. As you can see, Tony over at Deadline, our good friend Tony, once ahead said that it's bumping heads with Gran Turismo with $17 million each for them. So Barbie actually almost took the #1 spot once again. Had Gran Turismo not have had as good word of mouth that it is obviously getting for how solid of a movie that it actually is, probably would have ended up coming in second place. But it is indeed coming at the #1 spot, and only is about 100,000 or so, or a couple 100,000 ahead of where Barbie is. So Barbie is going to be in that top 3 contention probably for quite a long time, as there really aren't a whole lot of big releases coming out, with films getting delayed, and also with really the other big major film set to come out over the next few months being The Marvels, and I'm sure everyone and their mother is excited for that movie. Going over to thenumbers.com, as you see, Gran Turismo indeed in that #1 spot, making $17.3 million, only $200,000 more than Barbie. And this is once again another huge testament to the power of Barbie, seeing how it made not only 17.1 million, that's only a 19% drop from last week. So this film has had consistently strong drops. Not only has it always been in that 20s, 30s, maybe the highest has been in the 40s range as far as its drops are concerned. 6 weeks out, it is still the #2 spot by quite a bit, even beating out the second weekend of Blue Beetle, which, though Blue Beetle only dropped 49% domestically, it is not making much money anywhere else, and we can make some projections now on this film. And I'm already hearing people say, well, it hasn't gotten released in Japan, or it hasn't gotten released here, or it hasn't gotten released there. And I don't know why people are still going with those countries, or going with that old adage of, oh, just you wait, and hey, the hurricane in California, that's what hurt the box office. No, the fact is that the film is just not doing much of anything. And even though there are definitely more people coming out for a movie like this, liking it, versus a movie like maybe The Flash, for instance, I think that film obviously got universally panned, where this film is getting a little bit more mixed. Again, even though I think the movie is trash, and a lot of people in our space think the film is trash, I do still think that there are some people that are enjoying it. I remember that when I went to see it opening night, even though there were only 5 or 6 people in there was a family that was loving almost every single joke that was in there. So clearly, there is going to be a market that will enjoy it, but I don't think that's going to be nearly enough to be able to help this film get any money. Right now, we can project that the film's probably going to end up losing close to $100 million for Warner Brothers. So even though they're making some money off of Barbie, films like Blue Beetle and The Flash are probably going to keep it from actually making any positive net gain as far as just raw box office totals this year. The #4 spot goes to Oppenheimer. I'm so used to the meme, dropping also a very impressive 16%. This film, just like Barbie, is also holding very, very strongly, doing very well. Obviously, Blue Beetle has separated the Barbenheimer effect, but hey, it is still doing well. TMNT is also doing pretty well as far as its holds are concerned, dropping only 29%. And as I mentioned previously, this film is going to make its money off of merchandising, not really at the box office, where it might just break even, if even that. It might still end up being a box office loss. We'll look at the numbers in just a second, but ultimately, these are the numbers as they currently stand in the top 5 positions. Gran Turismo, as far as right now, it has made $53.8 million. So this film cost around $60 million to make. And let's see if they actually have that posted here on the numbers. They do not. Ultimately, though, what this means is that the film has almost made it 1 times its budget, right? Has almost been able to make its budget back. It obviously still needs to get to somewhere between 2.5 and 2.5 and 3 times its budget. And I think that it actually has a chance of doing that. Not that it's a guarantee necessarily, but hey, definitely a better chance than some other films that have come out this year from the likes of Warner Brothers, for instance. Looking over to Barbie, this film now has made $1.3 billion. So yes, this film is still making quite a bit of money in pretty much every single area. It's getting very close to $600 million domestic. The question is going to be, does it get to 650? Does it get to 700 domestic? Does it actually start to put a film like Top Gun Maverick and the numbers that it was able to bring in last year? Is it able to put that film on its heels? The way that it's tracking right now, I think that this film has the potential to be able to basically dethrone the big summer box office king last year of Top Gun Maverick. And in either way, though, it is guaranteed to be the biggest film of this year. And is likely going to be the biggest film in the last couple of years, not counting, of course, if you're looking at things like Avatar, Way of Water, or things like that. Looking at the actual box office breakdown between Barbie and Super Mario Brothers, as you can see, right, if you look at the domestic totals right now, $594 million for Barbie versus the $574 for Mario. So this film is a much bigger hit here in the States than Mario. I'll let you make judgments on that. You probably already know my thoughts about how one film is doing better than the other. But if you look at the international numbers at 745.5 versus 784, there's a very good chance that we're going to see Barbie not only be able to continue to outpace the entire domestic run of Super Mario Brothers, but also catch up and maybe even do better internationally as well. That's why 1.4 plus billion is likely going to happen for this film, because it still has a lot of gas in the tank. Just going down the line, as you can see at the same point of release, 7.7 million versus 3, 5.3 versus 5.6, 4 versus 3. The film is doing very well and is basically winning almost every single daily number, with the exception of the fourth Saturday and Sunday, but even then it was not too far off from where it currently is. Blue Beetle at $81.8 million is, as I said, pretty much now to be guaranteed a massive flop for Warner Brothers. Can't really say I'm not surprised. The film really wasn't all that good. Oppenheimer getting close to $800 million internationally. Very, very impressive. We're probably going to see this film get somewhere between that $800 and $900 million range, probably closer to the $850 million range, if I had to guess at this point in time. And then TMNT, the top 5 film of the year, of this week rather, is $135.1 million. So again, not doing terribly, but the film did cost around $70 million to make, and so it is still not quite there as far as profitability is concerned. Going to the charting, because we love doing charting here over at OMB Reviews and over, of course, here on Geeks and Gamers. We have Gran Turismo at $31.1 million worldwide, meaning that right now, it's around 71 million in the hole, right? So we are likely going to see that number continue to shrink. And I think by next weekend, we, of course, will be able to make some projections. But do remember that it was going into this weekend with an extra $20 million internationally. So that means that you maybe added an extra 15 to 20 million internationally when you combine all of those things together. So the film is doing fine, right? It's doing okay in these different markets, but the big question is going to be, will it get to that $150+ million number that it has to get to if it's going to make any money and if it's going to break even? I think it's a good enough movie where if you are on the fence of seeing it, I think that you should go see it. I think it is a lot of fun. If you like cars, if you don't like cars, ultimately, if you just want a good, entertaining film that has a good story and has one that's not going to offend, I think ultimately you're going to enjoy it, especially very, very good acting as well mixed throughout the film. Blue Beetle, $81 million. As I said, we can now make some projections on that film and say it's going to lose somewhere between $109 and $81 million. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a comparison here. Right now, we're saying it's going to make somewhere between 116 and 163 million total worldwide. And I know some people are going to say, well, it hasn't released in all the countries yet, so could that make a difference? It could, but the chances of that happening are not likely, right? We've already heard that story countless times over with other, comic book movies or other IPs, right, where you would think that they might do better in maybe the Asian markets. And it just really has not come to fruition, or at least has not come to the same degree as other places. I know that, for instance, everyone was saying when we were covering the Super Mario Brothers movie, oh, just wait till Japan, let alone it made $100 million there in Japan, right, in US dollars. But that $100 million is nothing compared to many of the homegrown anime films that have been released there, right? It's not something that was earth-shattering, really, by any stretch of the imagination. So what I mean to say is that just because it has not released in a country like Japan or in any other country that has not yet released, does not automatically mean that there's going to be all this extra money coming in. There's obviously a huge exception or a huge difference between Super Mario Brothers getting delayed release in Japan versus Blue Beetle getting a delayed release in Japan or in other areas. It's just not going to be much of a factor, right? So $100 million, though, we can project for losses. So just huge losses across the board for Warner Brothers this year. Because remember, even though it is getting some money back there on the Barbie film, right? $1.3 billion at this point in time. right, that $586 million in net gain profit, again, that's a rough estimate, it's still going to be splitting that amount. It's going to be splitting that with Mattel. And so it's not going to be able to, therefore, make up for the $300+ million that was lost by a film like The Flash, right? And just, again, the fact that we know now that that movie cost more than what had initially been anticipated. So we're looking at Warner Brothers being in a very, very bad state. Oppenheimer, again, the numbers are loading here. I do have a new system working with my charting, and so because of that, and because the numbers happens to be having some technical issues from time to time, especially when the box office numbers first come out. Those numbers have not loaded here, but go check out my channel, OMB Reviews, if you want to have a further box office breakdown of a plethora of other movies and also updated numbers here. And of course, check out my website, ombreviews.com, if you want to go to the actual charting itself. But what are y'all's thoughts? Do you think that Gran Turismo is going to be able to potentially get to its break even? Do you think that it's going to have enough momentum? I think that there is a lot of positivity surrounding that movie, so I think that there's definitely that chance that it has to be able to do something like that. But also I look at it and I think, hey, it still does need to make around $150 million worldwide. And so is it going to have enough gas in the tank to do that? Again, $31 million start when you had a $20 million head start is not the best thing in the world, so we'll have to wait and see. But let me know your thoughts about that and anything else. Are you surprised that Blue Beetle is going to be a massive flop for Warner Brothers? Can't say that I am, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button. Whatever it is that you're watching, smash it. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed Sunday, and as always, God bless.